So component 2 is known as the portfolio. This is really a write-up of your class and the decisions that you make as a teacher and why you do it. What makes you a great teacher? Show them your process is really how it goes. This includes student work samples and how you respond to the student work samples and showing the student growth over time. It also has a commentary that demonstrates your ability to analyze your own practices. So this is really time-consuming, but it's also very restrictive because while you're showing growth of your students over time, you have a very small amount of space in which to do that. So I'll turn it back over to the experts to talk a little bit about component 2. Yes?
I don't have a specific class. I work in all classrooms K-5.
Mm-hmm.
I need to pick a specific grade level, specific class and work with
Yes.
students. Do I need to get consent forms since technically they're not my students?
Yes. Everyone has to get consent forms.
Okay.
And really, they suggest in the book that you get consent forms from the students that you're going to be using. I've had many people say it's better to just get your whole class because you might think you're going to use these 4 students and then something really cool happens and you're like, oh, that would be a perfect thing to use, and then trying to backtrack and get the consent form. So it's easier. In fact, some teachers last year that were planning on it just used it with their open house papers and just knocked it out, and then you don't ever have to actually turn those in, but you just keep them on file as long as you're nationally certified. So,
and any adults you're working with in a classroom, there's a form for them also.
so you talk a little bit about the portfolio component.
That is a similar challenge in that I teach K through 5. I'm just trying to figure out grade level and then what unit out of, and then you generals have the broadest, look at it as well. But, I think just getting down to deciding and making that decision, talking with your mentor, there's like 3 music teachers besides me who have it in the district, and so they've been super helpful, one of which is in my building, one down the street. So talking with people and like getting some of that coaching to just kind of talk you off the ledge a couple times, just be like, look, it's weird writing, and it's just like wrapping your head around how to be so descriptive but not overly descriptive. Like it's strange, like you can't be like narrative, but you also have to be very specific. Like not necessarily people in your content area will be grading this or scoring it, and so I have to speak somewhat specifically about recorder technique and what makes a good sound on the recorder, and that's an interesting thing to have to do after not having written an academic paper for 10 years or whatever. And so I think just the challenge there was to just try to figure out how to do that, but also make it make sense and not just feel like super disjointed.
And we actually had Mandy Kelly, who's an instructional coach at Piermont, come in last year and talk about the 3 kinds of writing, and she had some really nice cheat sheets and some sentence stems and some things that were very helpful. So we'll be sure to do that again for those of you that are starting next year.
I would suggest also, you want to pick kids that you know are going to grow. This isn't about, it is about I'm wonderful, etc., but you want to look like a reflective teacher and that you learn all the time. So you don't want to showcase that you're you don't need to sell yourself on this. You need to show what you do, show that it's good, but then definitely say, next time I'm going to do this.
And your highest or most excelling students at the beginning are more difficult to show growth.
Yeah.
So it's not always advantageous. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it, but sometimes you think, oh, well, I'm going to show off my, What else?
I think for the most part, and I know this from my component too, and I think it's across the board, it's about differentiation and like a big focus on that, and also a big focus on growth and over time. It's pretty much like for science, I don't know how it was. We pretty much had to take our concept that we talked about and showed how we taught it throughout the year, whether it's through a unit or whatever, over some sort of span period between 2 weeks and 6 weeks. And I decided what worksheets I wanted to use, and I just collected all of the works from everyone. So literally, I did all the work. A lot of my stuff is on drives, so that made it really easy to keep access to. But for the stuff that wasn't, I literally just made copies of absolutely everything beforehand, and I did not decide anything about what students I was going to use until after I was done. partly A, because I like to procrastinate and not work out at the time being, but also part B, just because I wanted to have that wide flexibility of who I was going to choose. So that's thing one. Thing two is they have a written commentary that's in PDF format for each thing that's posted. The very first thing I did was I took that into Adobe, I converted it into a Word PDF, and I copied and pasted all the questions into a document, and then literally I answered every single question. And then I copied and pasted together.
Can you say that last part again?
Yeah, so on National Board website. Should I
Go ahead.
So for candidates, National Board website, and this is where you log in and stuff. For first-time returning candidates, kind of hard to see, but down here it says certification standards instructions. And so you go to your individual area. Not in mine, maybe. And so this is like science early adolescence, and I pick component, whatever it is. And so for like component 2, it's a PDF that is really long. These has all the documents you have, and also has this right here, which is like 30 pages long.
Those are your instructions for the
And these-
component?
yeah.
So you want to read those very carefully and like reread and reread so that you know you're following what their expectations and the directions.
And it tells you what you want to do, what you need to submit, but it also has, so there's like major idea in science that you're teaching, and then down here, right below all the information, it has questions for you. And so I turned this into a Word document and just copied it and pasted it in individual questions in document, and I literally just answered question by question by question, and then I formatted it all together as one. It depends on what it is, I think, but like for mine, it's 13 pages, and it's very specific as far as, sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine.
It's very specific as far as
And almost
size,
every
11
component
font,
is
Arial,
between
double
11
space.
and 13 pages. So it'll just be for your specific area, and they do the font. So there's little tricks that we'll talk about when we get more specific that are, one space between sentences instead of two. Those using students' initials instead of or referring to them in as short a way as you possibly can, so you can maximize the space that you have.
When you say 13 pages, that's your possible written piece. My component 2, with all the documentation and everything, was 48 pages. I'm curious what.
Mine is very similar.
Yeah.
For component 2, you have to do the written commentary, which is what he's talking about with the questions. And there's forms that also go along with it, and you have to type onto the forms. And then that's more work, and then you have to have student evidence. So for 2 different students, and they allow 6 pages for this or 8 pages for this, it just depends on your area. So when you see 12 pages, don't think you're writing a 12-page paper, because you are, but there's a lot more than just that.
It's a 50-page paper for that component.
Yeah, whatever the total is.
And I never actually told it all, because you submit it all individually, and I'll told it all individually.
I kept track of on every single one of these.
In music, mine have it in through video clips, and so I don't have the student work in paper. It's just, here's the 2-minute clip of them playing, 6 weeks later, here's them playing, and so it's more restrictive to just the 12, yeah. But it'll tell you, like, these 2 pages be sent on your reflection, these 2 pages spent on assessment, these 2 pages, these 4 pages, these 6 pages. So it kind of gives you an idea of what you should be doing there too.
And some are single and some are double
Yeah, so
spaced.
just read the directions over and over.
Does someone comment on the time period in terms of what you study your students?
So it depends on the individual thing. So like my question was how you teach a main idea in science over a window that was longer than 2 weeks and no more than 8 weeks. So it's like picking, so I took the idea of energy, and like I looked at 3 different ways where I developed the idea of energy. And so like sometimes it's very specific. I don't know what it is for like a generalist standpoint, if it's something completely different or.
Mine was differentiation in writing. It had to be in writing, and it was a unit of study for nonfiction and fiction, and it had to cross curricular areas, so it had to be like a science and a writing, or and a reading and a writing, it couldn't just be writing. And it was, again, I think it was, I don't remember exactly, because I did this component first, just 2 years ago. I think it was like 4 to 8 weeks of teaching.
Yeah.
You have to like follow your kids through. And the point that you made about keeping everybody's work, that's a really good point, because I thought I was gonna use a kid and they moved. And good thing I was keeping everyone's work. And then I was like, oh, Ainsley, this is great. Like, you don't realize it until you're compiling all of it, but.
Those were her best, those are your best conferences when you pick the kid.
You're like, what should I do? This one, yes.
And it's also nice too, because you kind of sort of want to, I think the thing about this is it's about trying to show all your different sides of teaching. And so you don't want to pick 3 kids who have the same struggle that you're teaching them the same thing over and over again. So when you keep all of your students' work and you go, oh, I got this student did a really good job of showing them this, now I want to show them this other aspect of me that I'm really good at, then you want to try to have that flexibility as well.
So it can be anywhere from, 4 weeks.
It's test specific, content specific. So like it's very clear in the thing, you must pick this topic and this is what it is, and they.
It's interesting, the similarities and differences between the different content areas.
Yes.
It seems like they all got in a room and said, okay, here's some generalizations of things we're gonna follow, and then they never got together again. You can see that there's evidence of they're kind of, at one time we're on the same path, but then there's odd differences from, that doesn't seem to really have any rhyme or reason. So. Anything else about the portfolio component? All right.
One last thing. Did most of you guys spend like a year on this? Or like, I don't know, like do you usually do one component at a time, it sounds like? And did you do one component each year, or how did you go about this?
So originally you could do all components in 1 year, and then 3 years ago they started revising it, and they revised one component at a time.
Per year?
Just one component a year.
Okay.
So for the last 4 years, people have not been able to do all 4 components. They could only do the ones that have been released. The first year they could only do 1, the next year they could do 1 or 2, and now we're finally back up to where it's all 4 components. So you have 3 years?
3 complete years to do your first try.
Okay, you have 3 years to do your first try
And 5
of
years-
all 4 components.
And 5 years to pass. So you can do the retakes, and there's all kinds, I don't know what the rules are as far as retakes. And if you do like retake a component, you can't use the same information. So like the work you collect, you have to write about it within a year from when it was originated. So that's pretty much means based on the window. So pretty much you gotta do it from the school year once you're doing it on, unless you're doing something really late. Because it's a year from the window. So theoretically, anything after April, you could use the following year. So like if you start doing something now, you could use it for next year. But anything before April, whenever the window opens, I guess it's April 1, you have to only use for this year.
I have a question too. So, the people starting this next year, are they able to access all the components now? Which is good.
So they theoretically you could theoretically do all 4 components in 1 year.
That sounds crazy, doesn't it? Is it?
Well, that's the way they used to. That's the way the only
I
option that
think
it used to be.
it's crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
My recommendation, I could only do 1 per year, and I did component 1 and 2 the same year because you were able to do those. If you have a tremendous amount of time, you should do all 4. You're very ambitious, go for it. If you think that you want to have some type of social life, or do a report card,
Or you have children,
or
maybe
not,
do not do it.
Yeah.
Well, I asked if I could wing the test, so I would say I'm very ambitious.
If you think you want to do all 4, before you
Strike it out,
actually,
right?
before you sign, because you have to sign up and pay $75 registration fee, and then pay the component fee. Before you sign up for all 4 of them, look over it and see what actually is expected of you to do. And if you want to be ambitious, wonderful. If not, you're like, you know what, I have 3 years to do all 4 components. I'm going to do 1 this year, maybe 2 next year. See what they, what they ask.
And you don't